Welcome back to CBS Saturday Morning. We continue this morning with the uptick in book bans playing out in public schools across this country. According to PEN America, from July of 2021 through March of 2022, there were nearly 1,600 actions taken in school districts to ban more than 1,100 titles. That's defined as when a previously accessible book becomes either completely removed from availability to students or where access to a book is restricted or diminished because of its content. The American Library Association adds that the challenges often target books that mirror the lives of those who are gay, queer, or transgender, or that tell the stories of persons who are Black, Indigenous, or persons of color. While a CBS News poll found a majority of Americans are opposed to school book bans, we found out the fight over what's allowed in public school libraries and classrooms is another example in this election year of just how divided we truly are as a country.
Are you aware of Indian boarding schools?
They call themselves the Teen Band Book Club, and every week this summer, they gathered at the Firefly Bookstore in Kutztown, Pennsylvania, to talk about them.
It's like the cherry on top. Why?
On this day, Sherman Alexie's The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian was the topic.
And it was only when he got older he realized
just one of the novels that frequently makes the American Library Association's list of most challenged books.
You don't really see much actual Native American history that isn't like clear as like sugar-coated.
Ninth grader Jocelyn Diffenbaugh founded the group. What got into you to start a book club on banned books?
When I first started seeing all the books being banned, especially in states like Texas, where they'd come out with a very, very long list, I hadn't seen anything wrong or that would need them to be challenged.
Have you had a hard time finding books you want to read?
Jocelyn's mother, Lisa, says the real turning point came when it appeared their local school board might be facing the same debate.
Is with our last school board election, we started getting mailers about why to elect these certain people to the school board. And in there, they had the book, I Am Jazz. And they said, this is what they're teaching your children. They want them to be transgender. And our school didn't even own the book. She read this flyer and she said, Mom, like what? They're using a book to rile people up to get them to vote. They're using this book as a weapon.
I don't understand. I can't get a straight answer from anybody. Who chooses these books?
As efforts to ban books have risen nationwide, school board meetings have become increasingly contentious.
I think they should be thrown in a fire.
People see them.
University of Pennsylvania professor Dan Hopkins studies the nationalization of state and local politics.
A lot of fervor around possibly banning books is just the latest instance of national politics coming home and deep symbolic divisions that national politics bring playing out in our schools and in our communities.
And they're trickling down to the books our children read?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can get involved in your local community. You can take your passions and your commitments in national politics and you can bring them into local politics. You can bring them to a school board meeting.
We are angry and we know our rights. Enjoy the time we have left.
It was that spirit of activism and anger over school COVID restrictions that led Tiffany Justice to co-found Moms for Liberty. The group, championed by conservatives, advocates for greater parental rights, accountability, and transparency in schools.
Parents are the best and first teachers of our children.
As Moms for Liberty has swelled to more than 85,000 members with chapters in 42 states, some chapters have pushed to ban or limit access to books in school libraries.
This issue around books has become a lightning rod.
It's a distraction. I mean, there's not two sides to this issue. There are moms who love their kids who don't want pornography in school, and then there are people who do want pornography in school. I think that the book issue has been used to try to marginalize and vilify parents, and the truth is there is no place for pornography in public schools.
That's a lightning rod of a term.
Yeah, it's pornography. Yeah. We don't put Penthouse and Hustler and Playboy into public school libraries. And the books that have been removed in Indian River County, for example, where I'm from, have been books that provide no educational content. There's no value to them. Our moms are horrified. It's shocking when the moms come to the school board and they try to read a book that has such graphic depictions of sexual violence, and their mic is cut off.
Excuse me.
Yes, you are right.
Excuse me.
Yes.
We have children at home.
Don't you find the irony in that?
but then it's placed back on a public school library shelf. Our moms are not political. This is something that I think has been assumed and is really wrong. A lot of our moms have never really been involved in the political process at all.
It feels like a runway. Honestly, it feels like a runway leading up to the next election.
Author Jason Reynolds is the national ambassador for young people's literature.
Imagine growing up not being able to read the Diary of Anne Frank or not being able to experience Beloved.
He's seen several of his own books banned, including Stamped, Racism, Anti-Racism, and You, and All American Boys, a novel about two teens' experiences with racism and police brutality.
If you're writing about race, if you're writing about sex and gender, then you're on a chopping block.
What is the most effective challenge to these books?
Obscenity. So the interesting thing is that everyone thinks that the most effective challenge is the book has racial topics that make my children uncomfortable, right? So this is sort of what we're using to talk about because it's the one that's being pushed to the forefront. But the truth of the matter is that most of these books are challenged based on obscenity, which is an excuse to not have to say it's because there are racial topics or there are sexual topics in these books. And so what happens is that we produce this work, young people read it, the adults are uncomfortable, and so they assume that their young people are uncomfortable. The real question is, why is discomfort a bad thing? Is being uncomfortable the same as being unsafe? The answer is no.
Perhaps no author has had their work challenged more than Margaret Atwood, author of The Handmaid's Tale.
I'm too old to be that shocked, surprised, or horrified because I've seen it.
For those folks out there, parents in particular, who say they deserve a right to say what's going on in the education of their young people.
Everybody deserves a right to say anything they wish as long as it's true. That's the real question. But part of a democracy is parents having a say. They can have a say. They don't necessarily have the right to dictate, but to say they can't have a say, that's pretty authoritarian, isn't it? What the parents were saying was that they didn't want Hitler's race theory taught in schools. You'd probably say hooray for them.
But at its core is access and all the potential that can be lost.
But we all need to have that freedom to parent our kids the way we want. So it's fine if you don't want your kid reading The Hate You Give or even Harry Potter, but you need to manage that within your own family and with your own kids. But don't take away every kid's read and every parent's ability to manage what their kids read.
Not every book is for everybody, but every book is for someone.
It might not be for her, and it might not be for my family, it might not be for most kids, but there is one student who might need to read that book, and it's there for them.
We should note that the Moms for Liberty chapter in Indian River County, Florida, challenged more than 150 books last year. Ultimately, 5 of them were removed from school libraries. Now, the list includes the novel Gone Girl and the graphic novel Blankets. We wanted to show you some titles that are still heavily challenged nationwide, according to the American Library Association. They include Of Mice and Men, To Kill a Mockingbird, books from the Captain Underpants series, and even The Odyssey. So this is a far-reaching situation in our country, all across the country, and not every state is banning the same types of books or the same subjects, but it is creeping in.
Far-reaching in a timeless debate about what people should read and whether some people shouldn't read certain things, right?
Where the control is. Can you control it at home versus trying to dictate to others in the schools?